It's better to be alone than with quarrelsome people. The world is starting to be very, very noisy. It's starting to be so quarrelsome that there's a lot of people starting to escape and start to be by themselves. And intrinsically, I think this is a human universal truth. I think every human starts to get in the stage where they start to learn that isolation is critical. Because when you think back when you were a kid, when you started to get around your teenage years, you started to separate yourself from your environment, your family, and your people. You start to just be in your room alone. I think this is also intrinsic. And when dogs and cats and these things get sick, I remember there was a study when animals get sick, they oftentimes they don't eat and then they separate themselves. So I think everyone's starting to understand that isolation is needed. When I think about all of the wonderful men in the world, a lot of them were isolated. Buddha, isolated. Muhammad, isolated. Jesus, isolated. Now, we don't have to isolate for so long, but we can isolate to truly start to understand ourselves. I isolated me personally. I went out into the wilderness and I fasted with no food, no water. I was out there in the freezing cold. And I was out there in the pure high heat. And I came back and I emerged as a champion far greater than ever before. I'm praying. But during this experiment, I learned something about myself. Something inside myself died. And I reawoken at a certain day. And I think everybody needs to go through that experience. Now, whether you fast or not, that's up to you. But still, there's an isolation period where you have no distraction and no noise, where you truly understand who you are. You need to emerge and you need to learn who you are. I think a lot of people in these days, they don't know who they are. They don't have a life mission. And it's truly because of the lack of clarity. We don't have any clear message anymore. We don't have a clear direction. Everything is contradicting each other. Everything is contradicting itself. And I think that's the number one reason why a lot of these things are happening. So everybody's starting to be contradicted when they're looking at this, learning about that. This and that. It can be even business. A lot of the information on YouTube and all these different platforms are starting to contradict each other. So they're telling you to do this and another person telling you to do that. So everybody starts to get confused. So the only way to gain that clarity is to truly go back into isolation. And I truly think that everybody should understand that this world is made for you. The world is made for you to walk through with absolute pure power and amazement and make everybody amazed at who you are. You have that ability, but it seems like everybody keep dimming their light because they're afraid. These people who are against you, these people that's out for you, these people that are out and against you do not have the power that you have. They want you to dim your light because you have the light. They want you to dim your light and not shine it because they don't want to see you shine. They don't want you to shine brighter than them. So the only way that they can operate is dimming your light, using shame, insult, and guilt for all of the things they try and break you down so that you won't have the cerebral capacity to shine your light and break through the terminal velocity of the atmosphere of the mediocrity. So they want to keep you trapped in a certain atmospheric pressure of mediocrity, which you need to break free. And I'm telling you to break free. I'm telling you how now. You need to control your mind. See, a lot of people don't control their mind. So when isolation comes, you start to learn how to control your mind with isolation. Isolation is one of the critical components into success. It's one of the critical components into learning about yourself. When I isolated, when I went out into the wilderness, I came back and I got more work done than ever before. As I said, it's a critical, necessary part. Now, a lot of people will hate it. Oh, why don't you talk to us? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? My mission is more important than these mundane things. I don't want to sit around and laugh. I don't want to sit around and do these things. I want to get my life together and get my life straight. Maybe after that, maybe in the future, after life is straight, after I learn about myself, after I learn everything I need to learn, maybe then one day we can all sit around a campfire and tell our stories. So I think everybody should get their priorities straight. I think isolation teaches you how to get your priorities straight because you have to start to question. When you're in isolation, you no longer have that outside external factors influencing you and telling you this and telling you that. I remember a lot of things, even when getting started on social media, business products, and all of these different things, there was so many contradicting elements telling me to do this thing, do that, don't do this, do that. So I just sat there. I said, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do what society's not telling me to do. I'm going to do exactly what society is not telling me to do. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you need to start to understand the influences that society and the people around you have. these people can have a certain amount of influence to the point where you don't even think for yourself anymore. So this is why you should start to think for yourself. If you start to think for yourself, everything starts to become complete and reality starts to bend at your will. But many people don't even try and think for themselves. This is why isolation breeds imminence. Isolation breeds power. When you come out of isolation, you feel reconnected. It's like something you lost that we haven't really, it's like a search for something. So isolation bringing that back to you. And I remember so vividly, it was one of the best moments of my life, even though it was hard to go through because, you know, all of the different stimulations of the brain is a process. It's like a shedding. When you put these things away for a long period of time, it's like a shedding. It's like something dies inside, but it's a certain thing that I got to be careful what I'm saying on YouTube. So in case of deletion, in case of all of these things, there's the free 2 links in the description, the t.me/Prem Operations, the free Telegram, and the Substack, just in case of YouTube deletion, because I can't say certain things. So once I did through this process, something inside me died, and it was like I reawoken. It's something inside me reawoken. I refound my purpose in life. I refound everything I needed to do, and I just started producing because you are a creator. We were innate creators. We were born to create, and I guess the world and I guess everything that we watch and listen to is kind of dimming that creation. It's dimming that creation process. It's dimming that creative light inside of us, and a lot of people don't want you to let that light shine. A lot of people don't want to let you let it shine. So that's why you should take your candlestick. You should start to rock it around your room. You need to light it on fire and walk it around the room and just shine it for everybody to see. Do not be afraid of these people. These people may not want to see you in, but that doesn't mean you stop. These people may not want to see your best, but that don't mean you stop. That don't mean you give in. So reality is starting to be in a certain way where if you truly want answers, you need to get isolation. There was a scientist who did this, but he did it in a bad way. He did it in a way of where he messed himself up and got himself sick. But he would sit in his room and not eat anything and go anywhere until he figured out his problems. I do the same thing, but I don't do it to get sick. He's doing it to get sick. But yes, I would put myself in my room or in a tent out in the wilderness or something. I would sit there and I would stay there until I get answers. And I will not leave. I want answers. So I think everybody should start to live that type of way, to sometimes forcing yourself. You have to have the will to want the answers. You have to have the will to want to do it. So this is what everybody should adopt. And I think reality is starting to become so very, very digitized to the point. Reality is starting to become very, very so digitized to the point where these things we truly have to deliberately seek out and find. If you don't, you're not going to stumble upon that thing that you're trying to look for or trying to do. So I think that it's time. It's time for you to go to the mental lab. I want your isolation to be a mental lab. Don't let it be something that stops you from progressing or something bad. How people think, oh, isolation just to cut people off. No, isolation is for you to get your mind right. Go back to the mental lab. The mental lab is the most critical component on earth. In your entire reality is designed by your thinking faculty, by your mind, your entire reality. If you don't use your mind effectively, you have to think. If you're not occupying your mind and thinking for you, then somebody else is occupying your mind and thinking for you. Who is occupying your mind and thinking for you? Because you have to think of it like a house. When a house is clean, it's vacant. That means nobody's occupying that house. But then people start to form and walk inside that house. Is now external forces inside that house. Who is inside the house? Who's inside your house? You have to you have to think about these things. Who's currently inside of your house and taking hostage? You have to start to reprogram these things because everything we've been taught in reality is an absolute lie. All of it. We have to relearn things. You have to blink and you have to relearn everything that you know. Everything you know about women is a lie. Everything you know about money is a lie. Everything you know about society is a lie. You have to relearn everything. You have to learn about objective truths. And a lot of people don't want to learn about objective truth because of freedom. Do people really want to be free, or do they like their chains and they just say that they want to be free? Because if they really wanted to be free, they would be free and they'll start to search. But I think everybody loves their chains. It's kind of like Rome. Rome would throw these little parties and these little distractions to have everybody distracted. This is what's happening in the current society, in the current world. These little distractions nobody think is harmless. I mean, nobody think it's harmful. It's harmful on a tiny scale, because you have to think of it like a building. If certain small screws in the building is not screwed in right, the building may not collapse, but on a small, minute scale, it's a shaky building. You don't want to live that way. So you need to reprogram. You need to relearn everything. You need to go back through and look for certain objective truth. And I think as you start to look for objective truth, what is truth? What is actual truth without a human connotation? And once you start to look for objective truth without human connotation, you start to figure out how reality is. So I think some of the mic was messed up on some of this, so I'm going to have to cut some of this out. But if you watch to the end, I appreciate it.